Hang in there. Well, my camera slips around for a minute. Or my phone, rather. Okay, I think we're good. There we go. All right. So I am going to be doing several recipes today. I'm going to be pickling some brisket to make pastrami, or corned beef if you boil it instead of smoke it. I have to make some salami, although I don't think I'm going to do that in this video, but stay tuned for that. I am going to teach you how to get steaks for much less money. I'm going to be making a black onion relish, which Chef John did a delicious looking black onion relish, so I'm really just copying his black onion relish. And I will be smoking a chicken. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to get this stuff going, but I'm not going to actually have you sit there while the smoker goes, because obviously that'd just be hours of you doing nothing. In a later video, I'm also going to do a leg of lamb, which includes caraway powder, mustard powder, mint, parsley, rosemary, and garlic, and some other things, but all wonderful flavors that go with lamb. So let's start with the how to get steak for way, way less. I'm talking like half the cost. You buy it like this. So steaks are simply roasts that are cut down, or whole muscles that are cut down. You can buy tenderloin at $13.99 a pound that might typically be $20 a pound for high quality from the butcher. And you can buy the whole tenderloin. Now, the thing is that you have to buy a ton of it at a time. So if you need a lot of steaks at one time, like you're throwing a party or something like that, then go ahead and buy the roast or whatever muscle is associated with your steak. And you can ask your butcher which one it is. So for instance, I have the boneless sirloin roast, which of course I then cut down and make sirloins out of. Big sirloins. Typically, this costs less. There are instances like with maybe porterhouse, ribeyes, what else? T-bones, so same cut as the porterhouse, just a little further down the muscle. Anything kind of along the ribs is going to be pretty much the same price usually, maybe $1 less per pound. So it may be worth it for you to have the butcher cut those because there's ribs and backbones and stuff involved. And if you don't have, if you don't want to be sawing through bone and scraping bone dust off of meat and doing all the work, then that might be worth it to pay the extra $1 to have your butcher do the work. But when it comes to something that just comes off a roast like this, I mean, that's easy. You turn the roast, and it's got the muscles running this way, up and down, all right? So I'm going to cut against the grain, against those muscles. That's typically how it's done. You can also cut the steaks in opposition to how they're typically cut, like this. Cut them with the grain. And then when you cook them up, when you go to cut the steak, it'll be a lot easier because, I mean, if you cut these, say, an inch thick, or even 2 inches thick or whatever, you only have that inch, like you cook the sirloins on the flat side, and the problem is that the muscles are now running up and down. And so if you want to cut it, you're going to cut it sideways, right? Well, now you're cutting with the grain instead of against the grain. So really, to cut a sirloin properly, you have to turn it on its side and then cut it, and it's a mess and it doesn't work. So there's another tip for you. If you want steak that's going to turn out more tender, it's going to be easier to cut and have shorter grains of muscle fiber inside the steaks. Then instead of cutting it the way that butchers normally do, which is for presentation, you can cut it the opposite way and get awesome meat out of it. So Let's see here. I'm just going to tell you how to do that. I don't think that I'm going to show you, so I can keep this video a little bit short. Now, onto the chicken. This is going to go into my smoker, and I'm going to put a drip pan underneath the chicken, and I'm going to have brisket above the chicken. And the reason why is I want that fat from the brisket, when it drips off, to hit the chicken and flavor the chicken with additional flavor. So my drip pan is a metal roasting pan. The kind that you buy, it has a grill that goes over the top. Well, it's not really a grill, it's I forget what it's called, but so that juices can go down into it and you can roast on top. Well, I'm using this in my smoker because it's a nice hard metal that is that's well protected. It's really, once you do that with the metal, you can't use it again for anything else. All right, now onto the brisket. This is really simple. A Texas-style brisket is smoked for like 8 hours, typically, if you do the whole thing. I mean, it can be smoked for longer. It just depends on how big your piece of meat is. You have the point and you have the flat, and you have these big veins of fat that run through it. Trim all your fat down to 1/4 of an inch, cover it in a 50-50 mixture of salt and pepper, stick it in the smoker. Let it go for 80% of the amount of time that it takes to cook the brisket, and the last 20% or even 10% if you want. Texans will tell you never, ever, 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 ever do this, but because they call it the Texas crunch. But you go ahead and you wrap it in foil. What that's going to do is it's going to keep the moisture in. It's also going to soften the bark though. So if you like that nice crunchy outside, almost burnt, super smoky rub on there, then you may not want to do that. In Texas, it's fairly acceptable. Not that I'm in Texas, and not that I really care, but fairly acceptable to wrap the brisket in butcher paper. You can also do that. Just be careful that your heat source is not super hot on one end of your smoker or on the underside or something like that, that you have a fairly even temperature around the brisket, and that temperature is 250 degrees or lower, because that paper will dry up and they'll catch on fire and then your brisket's ruined. You can still eat the inside, but your bark is ruined. That's the outside of the brisket, by the way. Relish. Okay, so this is called relish, but it's not like bright acidic relish that you normally get. So all you do is you take these and you can put them in the oven, you can and turn it up really high, or you can stick them in the coals while you're smoking something, or just in your barbecue. Whatever you do, you need a high amount of heat. And what you want to do is blacken the outside, the entire outside. And then about 2 layers down, you're going to find a caramelized layer, and then inside that, just cooked onion. So what you do is you blacken them, take them out, be careful, use your tongs, pop them in a pan or bowl, whatever, and let them cool off. Let them cool at room temperature. Do not put them in the fridge. It will cause them to get slimy and gelatinous, and you don't want that. So let them cool off at room temperature. And then you remove all the blackened part of the outside of the onion. And then you take the caramelized part and the regular part. If you need to kind of rinse the caramelized part to get the blackened stuff, the little flecks off of it, that's fine. Take that, chop it up finely. Take, one sec. Now you can buy these or you can roast them yourself. Same thing in the oven on the coals. Just roasted red peppers. Right? And you chop those up really fine. And it doesn't matter the ratio. You find out what you like, onion to pepper ratio. And you can do some roasted tomatoes as well if you want. Kind of throw some of those in there. You can make it spicy by using hot peppers instead of these are sweet red peppers. The hotter you want it, the more seed you add to it. Personally, I think that this is weird with seeds in it, so anyway, I just do a sweet relish. And then you take some, Chef John used some kind of vinegar, I can't remember, but my recommendation is that you use some balsamic to bring the acidity up. Either just balsamic, what's wrong with me? Balsamic liquid, or you can use the glaze style balsamic, and that's what I'm going to use actually. You can add a little bit of sugar to it, and definitely add a little bit of salt. It's really important because what it's going to do is going to bring all those flavors out so that you can taste them properly. Has to do with the ionization reaction on the tongue that allows your tongue to taste additional flavors, basically. What else? Oh, maybe some pepper in there. You can add a little bit of mustard. And that's it, really. If you want to use vinegar instead, that's totally fine. Let's see here, you can use apple cider vinegar, and that's kind of sweet, and I think that would be absolutely amazing with this. You can use, actually, I'm going to use a little bit of that along with the balsamic. You can use white vinegar. That's going to be really vinegary, so just be cautious about how much you put in. And you can use rice wine vinegar, which is going to be a very clean flavor, and it's just going to be a vinegary flavor like white vinegar, but it's not going to be intense, and it's not going to be it's not as acidic technically. What else? That's it, guys. I am going to go ahead and start prepping this stuff. I'm going to do it on camera, but I will not be cooking it in front of you, just because it's hours of cooking, like I said. But I wanted to run through it before I started going over it, so that way you can either just turn it off now, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, give me a thumbs down if you didn't like the video, but tell me why, please. And always subscribe if you want more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I will be right back with cutting board and some other things. We'll start with the steak. Steaks. First thing you want to do when you're cutting up these roasts into steaks is get some paper towels, okay? Don't be afraid, grab quite a few of them. Go ahead and open the bag, but just be careful that it stays upright. Because when you bring your steak out, you'll want the juices to go onto the paper towel. Actually, I'm going to go try and pour some of them into the sink first. You know, it's kind of funny. I always thought that sirloin has its own kind of smell. Okay, so grab your paper towels and just pat the meat. Heavily, though. Apply some pressure. Really don't be afraid to use plenty of paper towels. And no, I didn't just touch the paper towels with my meat-covered hands. It was the side of my arm. If you want, you can wear gloves. It's more sanitary, that's for sure. Or maybe you just don't want to get bloodiness on you. I'm sorry, sweetheart, what?
Do you want some gloves?
Oh, no. I don't care about that. I don't care, but you guys might. Okay, so there we go. clean paper towels. Just put that in that dirt pan. And then you may or may not have some kind of netting or twine covering your roast. So, and then you may or may not also have some fascia, some silver skin is what it's called, which is not ideal. Now, there are two ways to cut this sirloin. So this rump roast has several muscles in the muscle group. And you can either just cut the steaks, or you can separate the muscles and then cut steaks, and you'll just end up with some smaller steaks. But you'll also you can choose to do that to get the other fascia that's in between the muscle groups off of the steak. Once you cut some of the fascia off like this, you can use your fingers or your thumb or whatever to kind of peel it away from the meat, while pulling the meat away from the fascia. You may find some big pieces of fat. Go ahead and trim those off. This really is worth it because this was $3.99 a pound. I mean, sirloin at the local grocery store right now, I won't say which one because I'm going to defame anybody here, but is, I mean, when it's on sale, it's $6.99 a pound. Because it's summer, and so the prices are a lot higher right now, but unfortunately. That's why I've been waiting to do this video, because brisket is so darn expensive. So I had to buy the whole brisket to get the best price. And I'm just really carefully trying to cut. I'm not pulling the fascia off because it's pretty connected with the meat this time. So I'm just cutting toward the fascia, so that the meat stays on the meat and doesn't come off when I cut this silver skin off.
Did you see the bag of batteries?
The bag of batteries? I did not. I have not. So I'm trying my best to not cut away the meat, because obviously we want that. But the good news is that this is now dog food right here. Or trim if you're making like sausage or something with it. So now I've removed all that silver skin off of the flat here. There's some here that's between the two muscle groups, and there's this tendon right here. It's super chewy, so we're gonna have to remove that as well. Want some meat? Yes, it's totally safe to give your dogs raw meat. Don't worry about it. Here, bud. Here's Coop. Nice catch.
I have to go to batteries.
Okay. Love you, bye. So I am indeed going to cut the two muscle groups. You know where the muscle group is because there's more of that fascia, more of that silver skin right in between. And watch this. The weight of the muscle takes it right off. You don't even need your knife. I mean, it's falling off on its own. Now, you can use your knife. I don't think it's necessary. What I think is best is to pull the muscles apart really carefully. Oop, it's just fat. I'm going to have to cut it right here where the tendon kind of attaches. And then you can just break fascia or you kind of pull the meat away from it. Now, when you go to the store and you buy sirloins, sometimes they're labeled as a specific type of sirloin. And all that really means is that it either comes from the bottom or the top of these two muscles in the sirloin muscle group. Well, muscle group, but It's the muscle group that holds the sirloins, that's for sure. Okay, down here at the tip is where the tendon is, and I just have to cut through that. Okay, so now we have the smaller sirloins are going to come from this piece of meat, and then the larger ones are obviously going to come from the larger piece of meat. With this piece of fat, you can also take the trim and stick it in a pot on low heat and just let it go for a while. And what happens is the fat will render out of it, and that fat will stay soft. It'll be rendered fat, and so you can use that as beef fat for recipes later. I'm going to remove this silver skin that was right between the two pieces of muscle. Remember, run your knife toward the fascia. Just be careful because that's the side that your hand's going to be holding on to, obviously. And I'm being really diligent to try not to remove too much meat. Butchers are just like slice, 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 go, 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 and they cut tons of meat off because they can afford it because they charge you for it. So, we're losing some weight here, which means the price of our steaks are going up right now, basically. But it's still way less than what you'd spend at the store. Even if I end up paying $4.99 a pound after I trim this, it's still way less than I'm going to spend at any grocery store. $2 a pound less for this much meat is a lot of money. Okay. So there we go. That's cleaned up now. Yeah, it's a little butchered, if you will, but it's not that bad. Okay, good, clean. There's a little. Somebody's barbecuing outside right now. Well, grilling. I'm from California, so we call grilling barbecuing. So there we go. Now I have a fairly clean piece of meat. There's a little bit there I'm going to remove, but other than that, it's pretty good. Sterling, hey, look at this. Oh my goodness, look at it. Here, Scooby. Good boy. Yep, just this little piece is really all there is. I'm just going to carefully get my knife underneath it, grab it, and run my knife toward the fascia, not toward the meat. Here, Sterling. My big old St. Bernard. All right, and then the way that butchers would normally cut the meat is they find this end grain. That's the end of the grain, or the way the muscles move, and then they cut it this way. Okay. Now, like I was saying, you can cut with the grain, so that when you go to cut your steaks up on your plate, then you get to cut against the grain, and that way it turns out much more tender. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with these big ones here. So there we go. That's one sirloin steak, and I don't know. I'm doing a finger and a half width. Now, when you cut the meat, put your knife in and don't saw away. Get a nice sharp knife. Go sharpen your knife. Take your time, and run the blade through in a straight line, straight across, so that you produce nice cuts here. This runs. The way the meat runs is really odd. That's okay. So I think, yeah, I'm just going to keep cutting it the way I was cutting it. There we go. Nice straight lines, straight down if you can. It's a little thin on this side. You want to try and keep it an even thickness all the way through, or else you end up with a side that's, yeah. it's not as thick, and then it doesn't cook this at the same rate. A little bit of tendon over here in this part, just really small amount of tendon. There. I really am no butcher, I'll tell you that much. Might have been able to tell that yourself, though. There we go. This is a thin steak. Okay, so now I have, check this out. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steaks. And then I just have to put them you can put them into freezer Ziploc bags. My recommendation is get yourself a vacuum sealer and definitely put these in a vacuum sealed bag. I'm just going to grab another cutting board. Wash your hands first. I guess I just rinsed my hands. Okay. What I do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 steaks so far. Okay, so here's the smaller, two smaller mussels. And once again, you can go ahead and take these apart if you want, which is what I'm going to do, because one of them I'm going to cook as a whole piece, and then I'm going to cut it across. For this, I'm just going to use the tip of the knife to cut through that fascia that separates the 2 pieces of muscle. And then there's a spot where the muscle starts to be the same muscle. So I'm going to go ahead and carefully slice that right through the center. So now what I have is this longer steak. It's almost like a little mini roast. And I did that because this will produce good steaks, and then this can roast or cook on its own, and then you can slice against the grain when it goes onto the plate. And so this can feed about 2 people or 1 really hungry person. And then the other major reason why is this is where the tendon attaches. It attaches to this piece of meat. So I have to cut the tendon off, and I don't want to cut it. I'll show you. I don't want to cut it. Remember, this is just a sirloin, but you can apply the same techniques. Cut between the fascia, get the different pieces of muscle, and then cut them into steaks. It's pretty much, or you can just cut the darn thing into steaks and say you're done. But this will be more tender and it'll be easier to work with. So it was like this, and I've removed this piece because I didn't want to cut that big old tendon off and cut into the other piece of meat and lose all this meat down here, because this is just meat. So what I did was I removed it, and now I'm going to cut that tendon off without losing a bunch of meat. A little bit, but not a whole bunch. Okay, and scoop. There you go, buddy. Okay, so now that tendon runs up the muscle, and I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to start on the thick end, get my knife underneath, cut it off. Okay, and you're going to lose a little bit of muscle along here, but it's all right. Okay, and then I'm going to go just a little bit further. Just get the knife underneath, and then run the blade facing toward the tendon. And turn it around. So whatever is most comfortable for you, so you're not cutting toward yourself, and it's easiest for you to cut that off. There we go. Now it's gone, and I have wasted very little meat to get that off of there. The dog is darn happy. So there we go. That is going to be cooked just as it is. It's good, good for the pan, and then that way you can cut it against the grain. Okay. So now we have 1 piece of muscle left, and I think what I'm going to do is cut it right here across, because it was like that, and I've cut this tip off. I'll cut that, or I'll cook that just like I would this one, and then you can cut against the grain that way. Now, again, these steaks, the muscles run this way, okay? And you want to cut against those muscles when it gets on the plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these not like you would see in a butcher shop. A butcher shop is going to cut them like this because it looks nice. It's good for presentation. The truth is that if you want the steak to turn out as tender as possible, you want to be able to cut it properly when it's on your plate. So I'm going to go ahead. Here, eat that. Good boy. I'm going to go ahead. What in the world? Oh, that was that one. Here. This has a little bit of tendon on it. Just super chewy. It's got to go. There we go. He doesn't mind the chewiness. Search! Search! The St. Bernard, I taught him how to search. Yeah, so this is, I mean, once again, there's this tendon in here. You got to get rid of it. So I run my knife here underneath it. And once again, with the knife blade pointing toward the tendon, remove that tendon. Ooh, 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 let's not lose that meat at the end. Scooby, here you go, buddy. Ooh, good. Sterling, no, good boy. Yeah, these tendons just run throughout the meat, and you got to be really careful to get rid of them. And they don't do that in the butcher shop very much. They'll leave a whole bunch of the tendon in. You pay for that, and you can't eat it. Makes your steak all chewy. Makes people hate sirloins as well. Here you go, bud. Okay. Just a little bit of tendon running right along this meat here. What's that? You want it? Did you want it? Too bad he's got it. Okay, there. There's the piece of meat. I'm going to cut it with the grain so that when I cook these steaks, I can cut against the grain and then just get that super tender cut of steak. And this one, once again, this fascia, just remove it. Get rid of it. Don't worry about losing a little bit of meat with that piece, because the result is a steak that's much more appetizing once it's on the plate. Oopsies. I missed some pieces here. And this is not really, you should use like a fillet knife, I suppose, or a steak knife is not made for this, but it's what I have, so. Okay. I'm really into making sure my steaks are really, really clean and free of tendons, and they're just top quality that way. So the thing is, the difference between, so you go to a steakhouse, and a big difference between maybe, or like a nice French rotisserie or something, right? The difference between the steak that they serve and the steak that, say, some cruddy steakhouse, because there's cruddy ones out there, or something serves is, here's the crappy steak, and here's the steak that costs twice as much. That's it. That's all it takes. So now I have all my steaks that I'm going to get. Here's Scooby. That's my doggins. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 a piece, 10, 11 steaks out of that one roast. It looks bigger now. For $3.99 a pound. And a steak for $3.99 a pound since I was a kid. Not at that price. So there's our steaks. We're good there. I'm going to take this in the fridge really quick so that I can go ahead and move on to the next projects and show you guys how to do that. Just gotta wash my hands really quick so I don't cross-contaminate any meat. Okay, oh, one more. You know what? About to drop the thing. It's so heavy. Okay, not too bad. Might have dripped a drop or two. Okay, let's try and get this dried off. This is now my meat-only paper towel. This is called not sanitary anymore. Tap this. And the thing about brisket is you could take forever trimming the brisket, making it perfect. But I'm going to say don't. Don't waste your time trying to make the brisket perfect. It's going to be amazing. It's going to cook down a lot of everything. So don't worry about like the silver skin in the meat and everything. And just go ahead and cut up your brisket and stop worrying about it. Now, I do recommend that you stick meat like in the freezer for 30 minutes before you handle it. Cuts of meat, whole muscles rather, because the cold temperature will stay in the meat and it just becomes easier to handle. But anyway, so wow, I don't have to do like anything with this. So here's the thing about brisket. There's the point, some called tip, and then there's the flat, which is more flat, and the point is more pointed. That's why they call it that. The flat should have a fat cap. The whole thing should have a fat cap that runs all the way along here, okay? And it can be a whole inch thick at times. So what you really want to do is cut that down to a whole, just a 1/4 inch. And if you look here, it's already been done. It is like so beyond perfectly trimmed. I cut this little tiny tip off because that's just gonna burn. Sterling, eat this. Good boy. Wow. Yeah. It's nice and even. Here, it's already been trimmed so that you don't have any little tips that are gonna burn really badly. And I'm not talking burnt ends like tasty. I'm talking too burnt. This is pretty good. Maybe just I'll take a little bit off the edge here. And if I can get my knife under it. My knife is not as sharp as it was when I first started on that other piece of meat. Now there's a few big veins of fat that run through here. And basically, the biggest one goes right through the meat at a diagonal between the tip and the flat, or the point and the flat. Some paper towels. See how it's pointed? That's the point there. The tip of the point. Just trying to keep these cutting boards together. I don't have a big enough one for this. All right. So there's these big veins of fat that run through, and I'm going to go ahead and cut that down to that 1/4 inch. I'm still leaving some of it, and I'm trying to get into the pocket where that fat is. There's this piece of fat that's just sticking out here. And there's a ton of like fascia and stuff here, but I just recommend you just leave it alone because you start and you'll never stop. You end up cutting your brisket into pieces, really. Trying to get rid of that stuff. Okay, so yeah, this side looks good. I'm only seeing about a 1/4 inch. I'll tell you, the point has this flab of fat here, and that's just going to burn up really badly. It's not going to taste good. It'll be completely burnt, not charred. Completely charred, whatever. It'll be completely burnt. It won't be any good. The rest of this is okay. So now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to look at the other side. Do the same thing. Now this is a side that really has a lot of fascia. You can remove it, you can leave it alone. I don't know if you can see that, but see this white patch right here? I'm just going to get rid of that. Just run my knife along the meat. It's okay if I pick the meat a little bit. That's a white patch of fat, but there's thicker fascia right underneath it. And then there's kind of a vein of it that runs along the meat here. I'm going to remove some of it. It's just really thick and it will not be palatable by the time this ends. Now, people who get into barbecue contests will remove this stuff entirely. They want their meat to look perfect. And they're so good at doing it that they don't ruin their meat in the process. Anyway, okay, so I removed a good portion of that. Now there's this giant piece of fat right here, and what it is that fat that runs between the point and the flat, like I said. Hi, honey.
Hi?
Yes?
Tornado warning to the north of us.
Okay. How far?
Cicama?
How far?
It is north of Blair.
How far?
How far
Not
away
answering
is
my
Blair?
question.
How far away is Blair?
I don't know. Not terribly far. Not terribly far. There's not even a cloud in the sky here, so I'm not really worried about that right now.
There is.
Oh, okay.
You can see the storm.
Okay, well, we're good right now. So, we've got tornadoes and hail and stuff this time of year, and today it was forecasted, so we're just watching the weather. So here's a giant hunk of fat. It's not going to render down. It's not going to give you any added flavor. It's just a giant hunk of fat that's no good. In fact, I'm going to cut it out a little bit more even. This is going to create a pocket in the meat. Just make sure that if you get spices in there, you don't get a whole bunch, because if a whole bunch of spices get into this pocket in the meat, you're going to have a really bad time. It's going to be just super salty in that pocket, and it's not going to be good for anything, really. Okay, now, you can remove the point from the flat. That's a little tiny storm. It's a like pop-up storm.
Yeah, and it's still a tornado warning.
This is the kind of fat that I really like to just render down, and I'm actually going to do that. So we'll give the dogs these trimmings, but I will keep these big pieces of fat. Once again, I just cook them down, and they turn into this just soft fat that I can use in cooking. And like people like to use like duck fat to just add fattiness or flavor, or to cook in. They'll put a little bit in the pan and then cook in it, or a lot in a pan and cook in it. I personally just my beef fat I get from trimming pieces of meat. So you can cut that whole thing of fat out. It runs through this piece of meat. That you'll end up separating the point and the flat. The fatty and the flat is going to be, it's going to come out more dry, not dry, but more technically. The are harder, are used more by the animal in the flat than in the point. Another thing that leads to tenderness or lack thereof. Just a little sinew here. going to turn it back over. I'm just going to double check that I see what I want to do with this. So I'm not going to be separating the two pieces. What I am going to be doing is cutting this meat somewhere in between. Just pretty much straight across like this. So like that. I'm just trying to decide where, because half of this is going to go toward pastrami and half is going to go toward smoking it as a brisket. I want to get some of the point in as just brisket today, and I'm just determining where I want that line. I think I know where I want that. Most of the point, though, I want to go toward my pastrami, actually. Now, most people make pastrami out of the flat. It's the less desirable cut. Pickling it can make it much more palatable or tender, depending on how you do it. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the best pastrami that I can make. Hence, I'll be using mostly the point here. All right, I think I have my line. Just kind of, I want this to be the perfect spot to cut through it. And it just worries me when I start cutting a giant piece of meat in half and trying to decide what's going to go toward what, because I want all my food to turn out perfect. Okay. Whoop. A little bit of sawing here, get through some of this tougher stuff. Okay, so this is going to be my pastrami. It's got a little bit of that flat, just a little bit there, and then mostly the point, which is on top. And then here's my brisket that is going to be just Texas-style brisket. It's got that nice thin fat cap. And you can see that layer of fat that runs between the two pieces of meat, like I said. And actually, this one's not a lot of that fat, but it's got plenty of intermuscular fat in the point, which is this top piece of meat. The point runs down to right here. Okay? And then the flat runs underneath it. So here's, this whole thing is the flat. And the point's just kind of on top right here. And then same thing here, but now we have less flat. It's just this section and more point, this top part, because I like that fat in my pastrami. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with the brisket, and then I will show you what I'm going to do with the pastrami. The brisket's super simple. I'm going to grab a pan to put this in so that I can season it up. I'll show you exactly how I do that. It's very important that you're cautious with the way that you put salt and pepper on here, because you can easily over salt it. And I'm handling the brisket cool but not cold. It's okay that it's getting up to room temperature. I want that before it goes into the smoker. Got my pan. It's a full-size baking pan. It is 36.8 by 27.9 by 5.08 centimeters. Whatever that means. There we go. 14.5 by 11 inches, 2 inches. I don't know. I'm American. I don't understand that kind of stuff. Don't touch it! Honey, don't touch it! Now guys and gals, what I'm about to show you needs to be repeated the same way that I tell you to do it, or else you will ruin like $50 worth of meat don't ruin your $50 worth of meat. Get sea salt. Okay, you can use rock salt. You can use pink Himalayan salt, which is I think a rock salt as well. Don't use table salt. Don't use fine ground salt of any kind. Get coarse sea salt.
Really? No.
Hi, buddy. I'm going to be using a pestle and mortar. You guys back down here. I'm going to be using a pestle and mortar. And the reason that I'm doing that is my sea salt is too coarse, but I don't want it finely ground either. So I'm going to be really cautious about this. I'm going to show you exactly how coarse your salt needs to be. Here is the consistency right now. I don't know if my camera's going to focus, but you get the picture. The fuzzy picture. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And then I'll show you. Okay, that's it. This is how coarse it needs to be. Instead, it's still coarse, okay, but it's finer. All right, so maybe half the size that it was. Okay, go ahead and. Wait. Almost forgot. Sorry about that. Okay, got it in here. Now, the next thing I'm going to apply, along with that, and you can grind this fresh yourself if you like, but I have black pepper. Now, I have table grind black pepper. It's not coarse black pepper, because that's a terminology. I'm not using fully coarse sea salt like what I have in that. There. So here's my black pepper. It's not fine. It's coarse, but it's not super, super coarse. So the point is that the salt and the pepper are about the same size, okay? Now the reason behind that is that you want them to, they're going to be a similar weight. The salt's going to be heavier, but you want them to be an equal, how to put this? You want them to be an equal amount of both of them. If you put fine salt in here, you're going to need like, I don't know how much, but a quarter, a third as much salt. And you want to, you have to be really careful with that. If you put too much salt in, you'll ruin your brisket. It's a salty mess. So yeah, use the coarse salt. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and grind up some salt. And I put too much in. I have a small pestle and mortar. Just have to do a little bit at a time here. You can use a spice grinder if you want. I like my mortar. Adjust the camera. That should hold a little better. Okay. Salt. And as I go along, I'm going to add an equal part pepper. Okay. Now don't be afraid of the fact that, I'm using a ton of seasoning here. Do not worry. The pepper will not be as peppery as it is now. It'll be peppery, but just don't worry, it's going to turn out amazing. Some people are like, that's a ton of pepper, I can't do that. Don't worry about it. It's not like you're adding this much salt and pepper at the end of the cooking process. It's going on at the beginning, just contrary to how you usually do it. Whoops. Maybe a spice grinder wouldn't be such a bad idea. So this is it. It's salt and pepper for Texas. This is it, salt and pepper for Texas style brisket. Hi, buddy. Are you looking at that brisket? I'll make sure not to leave it out and walk into the other room. It's all about the density. So finer pieces of salt are going to have smaller. Well, that's a little bit too much pepper. Nah, that's okay. That'll do. Okay, this is what it looks like. Look, it's salt and pepper. Go figure. I mean, you can tell that it's about an equal amount of salt and pepper, and they're coarse. And that's how you get that nice crunchy bark on the outside of your brisket. Now, just lift you guys back up. Look at this. It is there to shine a light on the table. See if the camera will adjust accordingly, hopefully here. Oh yeah, but the camera's not going to adjust. So, let's put this where you can see it. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to put the salt and pepper on here, and it is seriously going to cover this. I'm going to rub it in. Stick to every part of this surface. Now remember, if you cut any little pockets into here, make sure it's not totally filled up with spice, because it'll just be this super peppery, super salty pocket of yuck. Now I'm going to go ahead and whoop, let that fall off. I'm going to dip the sides of the meat. You want this on the sides of the meat as well. An alternative is you can lift it up, put your hand there, and just kind of pat it in. Go ahead and slide all that underneath the brisket and press it into the meat. And those bigger granules kind of get tracked into the outside layer of the meat. There we go. It's looking pretty good. I need a little bit more, that's for sure. So you can see the muscle. You shouldn't be able to see muscle. It should look like this, covered in salt and pepper. I'm going to rinse my hands real quick so I can keep using that pestle board. Too coarsely before. Okay. This is a little better, but not fine. There we go. Equal amounts of salt and pepper. As before. Do a little shake-a, as Chef John would say. He also seems to be fond of the old tapa. That's my favorite. Push that in there. Make sure there's enough salt. Not too much, you know. Get that evenly spread on. Okay? I'm going to cover the sides of the meat as well. Don't let the sides go unnoticed. And you might make a little mess, you know. It's okay, my wife will clean it up. She didn't hear me. It's okay, my wife will clean it up. She says, no, I won't. Okay. So we got salt and pepper. That's all it takes. It's 50-50. That's ready to smoke. Now, when this is cooking, go into your smoker. Not too often. You want to keep the temperature relatively the same the whole time. 225, 200 to 250. When you are smoking the brisket, you go in every once in a while and spray it. I will show you. Different people use different things. I like to use a spray bottle with apple cider vinegar. That's what I use with this. And you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use apple juice, you can use apple cider, you can use water. You can use olive oil. There's some people using oils for keep it moist. It's not my way of doing it, but it's okay. There's several different ways to do that. That's up to you. Kind of gauging this and seeing if it needs more salt, or I think it'll be okay. Okay, so we've got our brisket ready. We've cut up our steaks. Whew. Man, it'd be so cool if I could show you guys this leg of lamb recipe that I came up with. I am so excited for that. That's going to be crazy good. I may have to wait a little while. I think I want my company going so I can grow the microgreens for it. Or maybe I'll just grow it myself. Okay. What else do we want to do? Pastrami. I'm going to show you guys how to pickle the rest of this for pastrami. Now, as for that chicken, just use fine sea salt and just cover it in some sea salt. That's it. Don't add any pepper. Don't add anything. Put some salt on your bird. Oh, and on the inside as well. Make sure there's no giblets or neck in there. And then put the brisket on the rack above the chicken and smoke that chicken. It'll be done in an hour or something. Yeah, maybe more like 2 hours, because it's 200 to 250 degrees, so maybe more like two hours. Whenever it's juicy and cooked enough. And it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm kind of speechless just thinking about it. It's imagine the best rotisserie chicken you've ever had, and if you don't like rotisserie chicken, you're crazy. It's like that, but times 10. It's so good. So, first thing I'm gonna do, rinse this out of. I'm gonna go ahead and take the fat trimmings from this brisket. Set them aside, because once again I am going to render those down. And then we just have the brisket to pickle. Oh, this is a little embarrassing, but I did not wash the pot that this is going to go into. Now, you can use a hotel pan or a half hotel pan or any kind of big plastic product. It can be metal. You have to be careful what type of metal you use. That's what I was going to use a pot. And you need to make a brine. First, I got to find... Oh, here we go. Hopefully this will work. It has to be big enough for the meat to stay completely submerged in the brine. I don't know if this is... Yeah, that's big enough. Barely. That's fine. Okay, so I have a large mixing bowl. Now I'm going to show you what I'm going to put in here. After I rinse my hands again. Wash them. Forgive me for that. Okay. We need anise. Star anise. I will show you. I'll need this. I know I'll need... Maybe. Okay. So, here's star anise. It looks like... Here's a nice one. This one's really pretty. Looks like this. Now you can grind this down into a powder. The whole thing. I might want to remove just, it has a little stem, remove that. You can grind it down into a powder. But we don't have to. Alright. I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm talking like 5 full-size ones, okay? But I'm not, some of them are smaller, so I'm just using, 2 or 3 of the smaller ones to make one big one. Toss in some star anise. Pretty sure I'm using... Yep. I'm going to use some kombu. This is called dashi kombu. I guess that means soup stock kombu. It's probably a grade of kombu. I don't know. I don't have any idea. It's seaweed. I'm gonna crush that a little bit. Just toss a couple of those in there. This is going to add some kind of umami flavor to it. There we go. So, star anise, dashi kombu. I know that this recipe is not traditional, but I guarantee you it's amazing. Some of you might be rolling your graves before they've even been done. I understand. That's okay. You don't have to do things my way, and I don't have to do things your way. Cinnamon. You can use powdered versions of all the things, but I know better when it comes to this particular project. Some cinnamon sticks.
Yeah.
Got a good 3 of these. Yeah! Darn it. Actually, you know what? I'll use 2. 2. What am I going to do with all this cinnamon? Look at this. I know. I'm going to have to find some other projects. Okay. Remember this had salt and pepper in it? That's okay. Because there will be salt and pepper in here. I'm just going to crush that cinnamon stick a little bit. Just like that. But Ty, if I use powdered stuff, don't I have to use less of it? The answer is yes. Because there's more surface area. And so those flavors can impart faster. But you know what? I'm not doing it that way. Well, some of this stuff will be ground. All right. So there's our pepper. Pepper, pepper, pepper. Anise, cinnamon. Did I say pepper? It's cinnamon. Okay. Fresh dill would be the best for this, but I will be using not fresh dill. Not fresh dill. Check this out. It all goes in. All this. It's just shy of, because I used some of it, 17 grams, or 0.58 ounces dry. So, thyme. Thyme, I found it. Alright, and then the spice is ready to go. Thyme, and some other ones. Okay, so smell it. Smell what's in here. Smell what you're putting in. And just kind of add it until it smells it smells right to you. You're free to use however much of any of these spices you like. I go really, really heavy on the spices. Okay, so we have thyme, anise, cinnamon, dill, kombu, ginger, cloves, okay, whole cloves, we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 whole cloves. Mustard. I'm using mustard seed. Okay. It'll open. That's odd. There we go. This is great. It should take you just as long as it takes me to make this, so this video is not so bad. So I'll post the recipes down below. So you can just do this with me, and it'll make it easier for you. Oh, I've got, let's see here, this is 1.4 ounces, so I am adding 0.7 ounces. Half. Just get the small thing of mustard seeds and add half of it. Now, I'm grinding this just a little bit. Break those mustard seeds up a bit. Now they're really spicy, but they won't be once they break down in the brine. Oh, sorry about that. I'm sure you don't want to see out the window. I'll pick it up. I stop losing them. Okay, so I've broken up about half of them. I'm not making a fine powder here. I'll get rid of the heavier ones. You can see down below what it looks like. Here we go. So there's some coarse crushed pepper. Looks like birdseed. Do they add mustard to birdseed? Maybe. I don't know. Okay, what else do we have here? Pepper. I have mélanger pepper here, and what that means, it's a fancy French word for green, white, and black peppercorns. Oh, and red. And then I don't know how to get this thing open. I mean, I know how to open that, but it's got a grinder attached to it, because it's the only form of mélanger pepper, apparently, that I could find. Let's see what coarse ground pepper looks like out of this. This is going to take a while if I do that. You know what? I don't want to grind this pepper through the grinder. I just want the pepper. I'm going to have to grab a tool. channel lost. Okay. Don't try this at home. It's a glass bottle. Yeah. I'm afraid of breaking the glass here. Oop. That was plastic. Wow, how do you get this thing off of here? How did they put this thing onto here is the real question. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Peppercorns. Apparently we're going to put a handful in. Actually, that's exactly what I wanted to do, so I guess I just lost some peppercorns. I'm going to have to clean that up. And such is life, right? All right, peppercorns, check. Next, we want, let's see here, we want sugar. We want garlic, fresh garlic. Okay, certainly have that. Garlic. Pre-peeled, you can get this stuff at the Asian market. I've got a handful of garlic here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the garlic in half. Kind of open it up, open those flavors up here. You can just put them in, I don't know, I think it's better to crush them or cut them a couple times. I don't think you can get a lot of flavor from the garlic if it's not open, if you're just doing it from the outside of the garlic. Plus you use more garlic, which is a waste. All right, here we go. And a handful of garlic. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a quick mix. Smell it. Oh, it smells amazing. So good. Kind of sweet from the dill and some of the herbs, and aromatic and spicy and just so good. Okay. Garlic, we got that. Coriander, ground coriander. Now, you can add cilantro to this. That's going to be the leaves. I guess in Europe they call the whole plant coriander. In the US we're going to call the seeds coriander, or ground coriander, which is what I have here. Since it's ground, I'm adding, this imparts a lemony flavor, so I'm going to add 1, 2, 3 tablespoons. Once again, this is a lot of spices. Typically people don't add this many spices. I just really like it this way. Pepper flake. Okay, now be careful with the pepper flake. You can use cayenne, you can use sriracha. In fact, that's what I'm going to use is sriracha. You can use different things. They're just going to impart slightly different flavors. But for the most part, it's adding a spicy element. It's adding some heat. I'm not going to do a lot, but I will be adding it. It's just a little squirt. I'm really not adding a lot of sriracha or anything spicy. So maybe like half a teaspoon of cayenne for the whole brine. Okay. Allspice. I don't have any allspice berries, and for some reason can't find them anywhere around here. So I will just be using ground allspice. Wait, do I have allspice berries? Maybe I do. Hold on just a second. So I don't know why. They don't sell allspice berries around here. They don't sell juniper either at all. So yeah, I do recommend using some juniper. So since it's ground, I'm just adding half a teaspoon. Otherwise, it's, you know, 4 or 5 allspice berries. Crush them a little bit in your pestle mortar or spice blender or whatever. Ground ginger. This really helps with pickling. Adding ginger to anything you pickle just helps the process just work right. Ginger is just amazing in anything pickled. Anything. Add ginger to your pickles when you make pickled pickles, cucumbers. Delicious. Okay, so I'm adding just a little bit more. About 2 tablespoons. You can do 3. That would be okay. Oh, I forgot there's sriracha in there. And the meat napkins. It's okay. Okay, I'm pretty sure. I don't see this on the list, but it should go in here. I'm pretty sure. Oh no! That's for my salami. What am I doing? Such a goofball. Allspice, bay leaves, salt, pepper. Okay. It smells so good, guys. It smells so dang good. Okay. Pepper. I did pepper. I did peppercorns. That's right. Just making sure I have everything. Yep, bay leaves is next. I have dry bay leaves. They're perfectly fine. You don't need fresh bay leaves. They're a little different than the bay laurel that you usually get. And I found that in an Asian market. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be incredible. There are 2 more ingredients. One is salt, and what you need is 3% salt by weight to how much water you put in. That's why we haven't put the salt in and we haven't put the water in. And here is my secret ingredient, fish sauce. It adds some funk, some umami. You can use, alternatively, you can use anchovies. Worcestershire sauce, that's a type of fish sauce. You can use dashi, like shaved, dried, fermented bonito, regarded as the hardest food in the world. But once it's shaved, it's paper thin, so it's not hard. And I'm just going to go ahead and dump the fish sauce in. This is going to stink it up. You won't be able to smell the spices anymore. That's why we haven't added this yet. Okay, I think that's enough. You've got some funk going on. Oh, that's crazy. But it's good. It's really good at the end. It's gross right now. It's going to smell like dirty feet. But trust me, this is going to be an amazing pastrami. Okay, salt and water. So what I need to do is determine how much water. You know what? I'm just really afraid this is not big enough for my piece of brisket. Peppercorn. That's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out the water. Oh, look how. Now I'll just wash a pot and then put this into the pot. It's bigger. I have a scale here. I'm going to grab a measuring cup. weight of water is constant. It's always the same weight. So I'm adding 4 cups of water. Now we can determine how much that weighs. Okay. I think I'm going to need another 4 cups of water. Trying to sink those herbs since they float. Trying to hydrate them a little bit here. There we go. Here we go with 8 cups of water. Now, what we can do, zero this out. Okay, Google. Okay, Google. It is not working. That's okay. What is the weight of water?
According to Quora, U.S. liquid gallon of water weighs about 8.34 pounds or 3.78 kilograms at 62 degrees Fahrenheit, making it about 16.6% lighter than the air.
That doesn't help me. How about this? How much does 4 cups of water weigh? Aha! So here we go. Water at a certain temperature always weighs the same amount. Because remember, when things become gaseous, they weigh less. When they're solid, they weigh more or less if it's water, or something like water. That freezes and turns larger than it was previously. Anyway, or at room temperature, at its melting point. So, what I'm getting at is that water's always going to weigh about the same. It's about the same temperature when you use it, and it's every time it's probably going to be between 50 and 65 degrees or something, 15, 60 degrees. So it's cool, and it's the same weight. A cup of water is equal to 235.9 grams, right? $235.9 times 8. I have 1,887.2 grams, okay? We're going to multiply that by 0.03. That's 3% of the weight of the water is how much salt we need. So we need 56.61 grams of salt. Safe side, whatever, put 60 grams in there. Really easy. 57 is even fine, totally fine. So grab something to put the salt into. Use a high quality sea salt or some pickling salt. I'm going to use a little bit of brining pickling salt, prog powder if you will. Wow, I think this is messed up. Really messed up. Try this again.
Well, hold on. Is there an Italian festival going on? Italian festival going on?
Honey, please be quiet. Goofball. Okay. We'll zero out our scale. Oh no. One time when my scale is broken. 0. Well, that's really upsetting. So, I have another idea that's going to help us. Although it's not the safest way to do this. How much does a tablespoon of table salt weigh? Okay. Yeah, that's nice. So it's 17.06 grams in a tablespoon of table salt. So fine ground salt. 17.06. So how much did we need again? 56.616. Divide that by 17.06. We get 3.32 tablespoons. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put 4 tablespoons in here. Just to be safe. Or actually, what did I say? 3 1/3? Okay, just under 3 1/3 tablespoons. So here's what I'm going to do actually. Because I'm going to use some prog powder, which is also salt. Okay. 1. This is a half tablespoon.
Oh my god.
2. 3. 4. 5. 6. Ooh. So there, 3.5 tablespoons. It's a half tablespoon measure. And then this isn't super necessary, but basically ensures that you're not going to have botulism. So I'm going to put a good tablespoon of white prog powder, basically. Prog number 1. Don't quote me on the prog number 1. I just know that it's safe for the meat. Okay, that's it. So that's how you make the pickling spice. I know it took a little while. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to wash a pot. I'm going to put these together. Like I said with the chicken, it's just salt. And I'm going to start up my smoker. I'm going to put my brisket in there. I'm going to put the chicken in. I'm going to put a drip pan in. I'm going to fill up my water pan, and I'm gonna get going. In the meantime, this brisket will be pickling in the fridge, and it's going to be amazing. You guys have an absolutely wonderful rest of your day or night or whatever time it is when you're watching this video. God bless you. Try these wonderful recipes and tricks in the kitchen. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, put them down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, I don't mind if you give me a thumbs down, but please tell me why in the comments. And last but not least, subscribe if you want more videos like this, because I will make them. Later.